Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us for another hour of insightful and invigorating conversation. And it is my honor and pleasure to have our special guest today, Isabel Draughon. Welcome to our conversation, Isabel.
Thank you very much. Such a pleasure to be in your presence and in the presence of your audience. I'm excited and looking forward to this hour.
So today we are going to be talking about, are you in touch with your spiritual self? And a lot of times the spiritual part of us, we don't recognize it, we don't accept it, we don't acknowledge it, and therefore we don't work on it. Rule number one in business is what you don't measure, you can't manage, right? So if that's the case, when you think of yourself, when you think of your wellness, when you think of yourself as a person, do you realize you have a heart, mind, body, and a spirit? Spirit is a fourth component, and it is all those four pieces together that truly build your whole self. So if you're focusing on developing yourself, if you are focusing on getting in touch with your real self, then we have to start with acknowledging that there is a spiritual side to me. Keep in mind that the spiritual side doesn't necessarily mean it's your religious side. Spirituality is about being connected with something larger, something outside of your body, something greater than you. And whatever you define that to be, it could be the energy, it could be the universe around you. So keep that in mind. And as we have this conversation as a Goldilocks community, what is Goldilocks reminding us? She's telling us that it's important to get everything just right. Not too hot, not too cold, not too hard, not too soft. To get it just right, then she's also reminding us, get yourself just right. If you get yourself just right, then everything you do and bring forward is going to flow. It's going to work just right. Because what you build in the foundation is what the building is going to hold, right? If we don't lay the foundation right, it's not going to hold. If I'm going to build a one-story building, I don't need to dig my foundation too deep. But if I'm going to put an 80-story building like my office used to be, I better dig 3-4 stories deep and have underground layers because it needs to structurally hold me. I have bamboo behind me to remind us. Do you realize bamboo takes 4 years to grow all its roots before it shoots up and puts its leaves? So most people think that bamboo is too slow to grow. It doesn't grow the first 4 years. And only in the 5th year, it grows 80, 90 feet tall. What is the bamboo teaching us? It's teaching us, take the time to build your roots. Take your time to strengthen your presence and anchor yourself. Once you do that and you're sure that you are centered, just like Goldilocks is reminding us to do, you're centered, you're grounded, and you got it just right, then grow, thrive, shoot up, reach for the skies. With that nugget of wisdom that the bamboo is teaching us, let's jump into the conversation, Isabel. When you think, so you come from having been a businesswoman, but also being in your personal journey.
Yes.
And today, you not only run a construction business, you're also a coach helping people find their spiritual self.
Yes.
How did you get to the point of realizing and wanting to not only build your spiritual self, but pay it forward and embrace other people to do it?
Thank you so much. I'll first start by saying thank you for the introduction that you did in the beginning when you did the differentiation between spirituality and religion. So for us to both, for all of us and everybody that's on this panel or listening to this, spirituality, just like Kaz said, is really about you connecting yourself to your higher purpose. And that could be anything. It could be the universe. It could be energy. For me, it's God. And that's where it starts from. And to answer your question, I started this journey. I got to this journey. Let me start from the beginning. I am originally from Tanzania and Zambia, East Africa, and I grew up amongst very resilient women, very courageous, powerful women. And these women, when I tell you, they were from the professional women, CEO women, and some of them were the ones that were selling stuff at the market, walking with tomatoes on their head. But for whatever it is, that was so powerful to me with them being an entrepreneur that I looked at it and said, they're entrepreneurs, they just don't own a Rockefeller building. But these women did everything that they could for their families. Push forward, 19 years old, I come to America, right? Let's fast forward. I find myself in a peculiar situation. The situation was not good for me. I then became pregnant. I was about to become a mother who needed her own mother, almost 8,000 miles away from home. But guess what happened? The survival instinct that I saw these women kicked in for me, right? And as I was going through this with my survival instinct and working and just making sure that everything is right and providing for the family, and I own a business, I started to recollect that my life is becoming too familiar. It started looking too familiar, where I watched all these women who were strong, courageous, but neglected their own needs. And that was me, right? And these women weren't happy. And that's when my journey started, because I woke up one morning and I realized something. As I said, for me, it was God that said, you were created to thrive and not to survive. And that's when my journey started, and said, you know what? I'm strong, I'm courageous, I'm just like all these women, but my soul is heavy. I watched too many women back home die at an early age. I never understood what it was then, but as I was growing up and through my journey, I started understanding that it was their emotions. They neglected themselves. They didn't take care of themselves. There was no self-care. They did not have a voice. So their life was suppressed. So they lived a life of giving for everybody else, and they neglected themselves. That became my story. And it was from that journey, I was like, this doesn't feel right. I can no longer continue to live like this, because I felt like an actor in my own life, and not even the main actor. I felt like a supporting actor in my own life, where I'm just giving and giving, and I'm giving from an empty tank, right? So that's when I began the journey of, there is more to life than doing. There is more to life than having the best sales, the best company, right? There is more to life than that. And that's when I started my journey of spirituality, and really diving deep and realizing that life starts from within. Everything starts from us. And that's when I took that journey, my spiritual journey. And now I want to empower as many people as I can to really help them to start realizing that your life starts within you. Everything from the outside is an addition to you. But unfortunately, we live in a toxic society where now we're getting our validation, our love, and everything from our results, from our performances. So we're all on this hamster wheel trying to become this person that we already are. You have to start with your being. And that's why it says become. You be it, and that is who you were created to be, so you can come into what you're supposed to be into this world. So that's that's my biggest thing right now. And I'm screaming on top of the mountain, like, ground yourself, heal yourself. Like you mentioned, Cass, right? Mind, body, spirit, soul, all those are integrated. I have my clients who do amazing in the business world. When I tell you 6 figures, millionaires, they do an amazing job. But when they go home at night, there's that emptiness. And that's why it's important for us to integrate all those aspects of our lives, because our lives start from within to the outside, not the way the world has been teaching us, outside in. Now, it doesn't work that way.
I love where you took this conversation. And this is actually the reason why you and I immediately connected when we talked
Yeah.
about it. Life is about being. And from that state of being, we actually bring forward all that we do.
Yes.
So we live in a Western society. You and I both live in a Western society. And some societies teach us what you do is more important. who you are, nobody cares, and especially a mother.
Mhm.
A woman, a mother is expected to give, give, give. But you mentioned you're running empty. You found yourself running empty.
Mhm.
How can I give from an empty cup?
You
And how
can.
can I fill my cup, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
listen, for women, what is the first instance that women realize they're empty? Because unless they come to the point of realization, you really can't help them.
No, and that's very true. And I'm really glad that you brought that point up, right? And especially with like I speak of people that I work with and just clientele that I talk to. See, most of us don't put our hand up and say, oh my goodness, I need help, right? And most of us, especially when we're successful, we don't want to say that we need the help. So it's through conversation, it's through people hearing what I'm saying. Then they get an aha moment and say, this is me. And that's when they come to that realization that they need help. You cannot, right, give from an empty cup. It's not a theory, it's a fact. When your vessel is empty, you cannot operate from a state of intention. Whether you're at home, whether you're a manager, managing employees, whether you're an employee, whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 magazine, you cannot give what you don't have. I love Iyanla Vanzant. I love her. She says this: it is not selfish to fill your tank up. It's self-full. So then whatever is left over, I give to you. And this is where most people have to understand. And when I said that we live in a toxic society, this society is leaving us running on E. And that's why people have anxiety. That's why people feel depressed. That's why people are not feeling good enough, because every morning when we wake up, we don't gauge our mind, our body, our spirit, our soul. We gauge, how am I going to be classified in this world? What am I going to do to nail those goals, right? So for the moment you wake up and that's the first thing you're thinking of, the external, that's what your life is based on. So now we have to really be grounded and start embarking on that journey of finding ourselves. And the reason why most people don't like to go on that journey, it's very uncomfortable. It's a very uncomfortable journey, because you see your strengths, you see your weaknesses, and it puts you sometimes in moments where you don't even want, you're not yourself. So most people don't want to do that because it's a very uncomfortable journey.
And a
Yeah.
couple of things you said resonated with me, Isabel, as we are talking. One is people get caught up in the success. They don't take time for themselves.
Yeah.
I also always ask my question. I ask myself, I ask my clients, I ask the businesses I'm working with, how are you defining success?
Yes.
Because if we define success as outcome, then we are only focused on doing
Yeah.
and pushing and pushing. And anything that is chased is not going to bring fulfillment.
No, it won't bring fulfillment.
Yes. How are you evolving? How are you becoming? And
Yeah.
that being has to arrive at a state.
Yes.
Why not define that as a success? Technically, for a corporation, achieving its mission is the success, and nowhere in the mission anything about the bottom line is there, right?
Right.
So a person has a purpose and a mission, an organization has a purpose and a mission. It is not separate and apart from the actual
Same thing.
the person or the organization takes. So talk to me
Mhm.
about when you do coaching, when you are helping successful individuals, as they define success, find their peace, because they truly are not successful because they're unhappy, right?
Yeah.
How do you have this conversation? It's a cultural conversation. Certain parts of the world inherently understand it because that's how they're raised
Mhm.
and that's how they live. And the Western society tends to go after the outcome and the material success.
Yes. And you're absolutely correct.
Conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So you and I are both living in the Western world, and just like you eloquently explained, the way our lives are. But that's what the world is about. Yeah, that's the toxic part of the Western world, is defining success by money, material, right? Accolades. Where am I at in a company? You know what I mean? What is my position? But the truth of the matter is, success is fulfillment, right? It's about you asking yourself those powerful questions. What fulfills me? Because anybody can make money, anybody. If you put your mind to it and you follow the steps, you could make money. But what fulfills you? And the thing about the Western world is we've moved away from fulfillment, and then we define success as what we acquire.
Mhm.
And it's a hard conversation in the beginning with my clients, because you know what? They're doing well, they live well, the families are doing well, they have good resources, they have money, so they get to have the freedom to do whatever it is that they want to do. But until we actually start really excavating and diving deep and I'm asking them, what does success mean to you, right? They'll tell me all these things that I've done. But then when I say, what fulfills you? It's silence. When I say, who are you? It's silence. See, most of us live this life and we don't even know who we are. And that's why right now it's really important for people to start tapping into, and as you mentioned earlier, Cass, to get grounded, and not just personally, even in corporations, right? Like corporations have to change the way they're doing things. And that's why people are not even lasting, because now we're in a world where people not only just want more money, they want more living. They want to be more in their being. They want to spend more time with their children. They want to have a fulfilled life. So we have to completely change all this. Even when I talk to corporate clients, it's you have to invest in your employees, because nowadays it's not only about the bottom line, right? Your culture has to be about your people. Then your bottom line becomes an amazing bottom line, because you're not even focusing on that, because when you pay attention to the people, everything else flows, right? And it's the same thing in personal life. When you ground yourself and you ask yourself those questions that most of us don't ask ourselves, that we have not been trained or conditioned. And some of us have all these limiting beliefs and fear instilled in us that we can't ask those questions. What we know to do is to acquire and not to be. So it is really important, especially now, as, in fact, I'm going to do a talk about this. Right now, I'm hearing a lot of chatter and I'm having a lot of conversations with business owners and people. We need to knock out 2022. We need to hit our goals and just hit 2022, end of the year, just knock it where, slay it, is what people are saying. That's great. Our goal in life is to hit our goals, right? Is to be the best version of ourselves. But this year, I'm offering something different to people. Instead of 10xing or 2xing or 12xing your goals, how about we 10x gratitude? How about we 10x, and for you to look back, sit back and look how far you've come, what you've overcome this year, right? What journeys, what trials, and look where you're at. How about we 10x that? How about we 10x rest and unpack what's not serving us? Because as we're going to 10x our goals, most of us are adding onto a state that is already depleted, exhausted, it's burnt out, and our mind, our body, and our souls can't take it. See, most people don't realize emotions kill. And the more we keep putting and draining our emotions, we can never live a fulfilled life. So I want to challenge people this end of 2022. Go ahead and slay your goals, absolutely. But how about we 10x gratitude? How about we 10x rest? Yeah, find time for you to rest. Find time for you to unpack, because most of us have a lot of healing to do in order for us to grow. And healing doesn't happen in doing. Healing happens in resting. right? So how about you look at your life and see what's not serving you and leave it in 2022? How about you look at your life and see what healthy boundaries that you need to create for your life and take those in 2023, right? So that's where I want to shout from the mountaintop, your life needs to be about how you feel inside first and not what you produce.
Mhm. Brilliantly said. And that is such an important, especially as we're getting towards Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we thankful for? What has helped us get here? And
Yeah.
people don't realize gratitude is the single most potent brain chemistry booster that triggers our emotional intelligence, that contributes 80% towards our success,
Yeah.
not our skills, not all our doing. So if you know that, and you know 80% of you is going to get boosted by just being grateful, and being is the operative word.
Yes. Yes.
Magic happens, right? So
Right.
when you say this, a lot of people will turn around and say, but how do I do it?
Yes.
Because when you're raised from childhood, do, goals are all about doing. Everything is about accomplishing. Even in schools, we have to give a child a gold star for just showing up. You don't even have to do.
Yes.
How do we take these cultural inculcation of showing up is everything, and then once you show up, if you do, you're even better? But nobody, not even the parents, have the time to invest or get to know the child who's a being. The child is not somebody you own. Child
Right.
is an actual living, breathing human being who is made by their own creator, by
Yes. Their own person.
yes, to be themselves. And when it is never invested in childhood, how do you get to 25, 30, 40 years old and go back to something you have no comprehension of?
Such a great question. This is what I respond to people, and this helped me, right? It is always the simplest things that have the most power, right? It's like vulnerability. Yeah, the ego tells us when I stand on top of the mountain and say, I'm the best than everybody. But the person who will sit in the corner and be vulnerable and tell you the truth of who you are, that's where the power stands. Be still. Slow down, right? Because most of us don't know who we are. I first challenge people with asking the question, rather have them answer the question, who am I? That's where we start from. Who are you? To the core of your being, not you as a mother, not you as a sister, a CEO, a manager, right? Not you as the community leader, not you as a wife, or even the male that are watching this, right? Not you as the CEO, as the father, as the brother. No, who are you? That's where I start. And most people don't know how to answer that question.
You're absolutely right. I ask that question at every one of my interviews.
Mm-hmm.
First, they start telling me all the things they did, accomplished. I'm like, what I'm asking. Then they go to tell me where they were born, who their parents are, what religion, their culture. I'm like, that is also not what I'm asking.
No.
I actually had a 50-year-old grown man. I'm interviewing for a controller position.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually broke down and cried and said, you know what? I am 50. Nobody ever wanted to know me, and I haven't taken the time.
Mm.
That was heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking because, and the reason why it's so difficult, I always tell people that, with what I do, the name of my coaching business is Loud Whisper, because I feel like women are always screaming for help on the inside, but nobody hears them because it comes out as a whisper. And my intention is to really help women realize and recognize their voice, because that's the identity of who you are. And this is what I try to explain to people. You have to know who you are to the core of your being. So what does that look like? It looks like saying, I need to start unlearning and stripping right? Some of the things that are not serving me. I need to excavate myself and really dive deep and really discover, what do I like? What do I need? What matters to me? What are my values? And that's where you start on that journey of truly discovering. It's a self-discovering journey. When you start getting to that point and realizing your needs, your wants, who you are and whose you are, then from that space, you're able to create the life that you desire. So it's about stillness, right? It's about self-discovery. It's about really getting to know who you are, because when you know who you are, everything else just falls into place. And most of us don't know who we are, because from the time we were little children, we have been told who we should be. So we live this life chasing to become this person that everybody else has told us who we're supposed to be. And that's where we never have fulfillment, because this person does not exist. This person is an idea of who everybody thinks that you should be. So I help my clients really to just stop, get off the hamster wheel, and really connect to the truth of who they are, right? To the core of the being, and start answering the questions, who am I? And really, whose am I? Because you got to know who you are, and you have to know your source. Where did you come from?
Very much so. And as you start digging deeper and guiding people through this process, do they understand, and how do they grasp at their spiritual self, which is different from their religious beliefs and their dogmas and their religious practices?
In the beginning, no, right? Of course, it's like, first of all, the fact that I'm a life transformation and a spiritual coach. So what happens is that most of my clients are professional and CEOs. So the first thing before they come to me, I think they think twice, maybe 40,000 times, because that spiritual coach part is a woo-woo to to the corporate world. They're like, right? I don't want to get into this spiritual part. So yeah, in the beginning, first, people don't understand exactly what is it that I'm getting into. When they see spiritual, they equate it with religion. But as I start having a conversation with them, for me, I explain to them that spirituality for me is your mind, your body, and your spirit, right? It's the whole totality of who you are. It's the innate of you. It's, like I said, it's the voice inside of me. That's my spirituality. That's where God speaks the loudest to me. To me, spirituality, it embodies and it encompasses the totality of a human being, and how you think and how you feel and what matters to you, and how you're connected to your higher being, whether it's energy or whatever you're connected to. It's like I always tell people, in essence, spirituality is believing in something bigger than yourself. You believe in yourself, but you also know that I'm here, I'm present, and I'm able to become, realize, and attain the highest version of myself, because there is something, someone, somewhere out there bigger than me that's governing me, protecting me, and really guiding me through life.
Very well said. And as you start having this conversation with people who are ready to engage, because if they're not going to come to you, what are 3 things you recommend that they do as an ongoing practice to remain grounded in their spirituality and amplify their spirituality? Because people don't think of their spiritual self, and they don't think about growing their spiritual self. And we cannot really grow if we don't grow our spiritual side, because that's almost like the vessel in which the rest of me is contained. Right? Just like a fish, a koi fish will grow as big as its environment. You put it in a small pond, it'll remain small. If you put it in a massive pond, it turns into a humongous fish, right? So is our spirit. How do we expand the container so that as our spirit grows, the rest of me can thrive? And what 3 tips would you give people for it?
That's such a beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking that question. I'll tell you about the tips, but I want to piggyback off of what you're talking about, the bird, right? Everything that we need, we have inside of us. Everything, every human being on this earth has a gift inside of them. You're here for a reason. You are here for a purpose. So the first thing that I do is, as I mentioned earlier, right? It's really about stillness. I get them to start getting still because we have everything that we need, just like the bird, just like the fish. Yeah. They fly using their wings, and you put a seed in the ground, right? What do you have to do for the seed in order for it to grow? You have to nourish the seed. You have to fertilize the seed. Same thing with us. Yeah, we have to go through a process. So we have to grow our spirituality. And what does that look like? It looks like, first, I talked about stillness. And even the stillness, people are like, well, I'm not just going to sit. No. What I'm talking about is listen to yourself breathe. Stop for a minute. Get connected to your breath. That is you. And number two, I empower them to journal, because most of us who are high achievers, most of us who do well in life, we get our validation from the outside. And you know what that means? We're suppressing our internal. And the reason why we do so well sometimes on the outside, because that's where we feel we have the power, and we run away from what's really inside of us for us to know ourselves. So I encourage them to start journaling, to really start diving deep and discovering what is inside of them. So it's the stillness, it's the meditation, and it's journaling. And third of all, the most powerful thing when you're journaling, there are two things that I always want my clients to answer. What do you need at this moment? And what do you want? See, that forces them to stop and dig deep and revert back into themselves and answer these questions that they've never even thought they needed. And sometimes all they need is rest. Sometimes what they need is guidance. So those are really the three tips. But I try to encourage people and let people know that everything that you need is already inside of you. I always reference to the animals, just like the way you do, right? And whatever we need, the person who created us is going to make sure that we can do and be good. Just like the fish understands, in order for me to survive, I'm going to stay in this water, right? So because they need the water, the birds, they need the air in order to lift them up, right? We have what we need in front of us. We just have to be still, meditate, journal, and connect. Those are the beginning stages. And connect with our hearts and ask your heart, what do I need right now?
Brilliantly said. And I love the three tips. And I'm smiling when you say all we have is already inside us.
Yeah.
That's literally what my name means. A child in custody is supposed to grow up knowing everything she needs in life.
Yeah.
Putting in troubling times, in unimaginable, inhuman moments.
Yeah.
All you need is already inside you. Reach out and draw from within.
Yeah.
And so I come from a culture where a child, as soon as a child is born, the Hindu priest maps out a horoscope of what is foretold for this child based on the planetary positions at the date, time, longitude, and latitude of that child's birth.
Yeah.
And then what is envisioned for this child is how we name a child.
Yeah.
So the name has a meaning. We grew up, all of us, knowing that I mean something, I stand for something. My life is supposed to be something. That's why I am named this way. Mm-hmm. And when we say our name, every time we are reinforcing who we are supposed to become. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say this is such a Eastern, Western contrasting choice difference as the way we kids. Mm-hmm. And people wonder, why are all these tech companies now headed up by people from my part of the world? Not that they had better opportunities. Mm-hmm. They were raised to be different, and they were actually guided to become what they were meant to be from a different route, not push, 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 and go get the outcome, right? So we are actually seeing it manifest around us. What if we took our time and take a step back and learned from it? Yeah. Because doing only gets us exhausted.
Yeah.
Being fills us up.
Yeah.
And how can we go far if we're constantly empty? And how much further can we go if we're constantly being filled?
And you can't, right? And I love the example that you give, especially as I mentioned, being from Africa too. So I get to take my family home this December. I'm extremely excited to take my family home. But guess what? I gave my kids a disclaimer because of the Western world and being home. I'm excited because I know when they go home, people are going to love on them. People are constantly going to be around them. People want to eat with them from the same plate and all that stuff. So I am so excited for my family and my kids to experience that. And I had a conversation with them. I said, listen, I know we live in the Western world, and in the world that we live in, it's all about self. It's all about give me distance. It's all about you're in my face, get away from me. I said, but where I come from, it's totally opposite. I said, where I come from, people are going to be toppling on top of you, wanting to hug you, kiss you, be with you, eat on the same plate with you, and
Feed
all
you.
that stuff, and feed you. And I said, each house you go to, they're going to force you to eat. And each person you meet is going to want to hug you and hug you tighter. And you can meet the same person 3 days and they're going to want to hug you for 3 days. You know what I told them? Embrace it. Take it all in. I said, because when we come back to the Western world, it doesn't work that way, right? And that's where we've lost that humanity. And that's where we have lost our own being, because our being is what really brings out the best in who we are. We live in a world now where everything on the outside is what's supposedly to bring the best. Everybody keeps telling everybody to have the best mindset, to achieve all the goals and to do, but nobody is telling people to connect to their hearts. Everybody's talking about mindset. Nobody talks about heart set. And I always believe that for me, my mind will never comprehend what my heart knows. So the reason why those companies that you feel now have people from your side of the world running those companies, it's what they're bringing culture-wise. It's the I see you. It's we're all in this together, right? That employee is just not a number. This is the culture of our business. It's like how I tell my business coaches, my clients will never be numbers. The moment we start focusing on sales funnels, then I'm not doing my job, right? Because it's about the human being. It's the being of the person that we all have to make sure we pay attention to, we value, we see, and we recognize, whether it's in your home, whether it's in your personal space, or whether you are running a Fortune 500 company. Because the truth is, without your employees, you will not be able to have what you have, right? And as far as the employees, don't break yourself trying to give what you don't have. Stop, replenish, rejuvenate, get to know who you are, and operate from that space. Because as human beings, we were never, and I'll repeat this, we were never created to survive. We were created to thrive. If you want to thrive, tap into your inner self. If you want to survive, tap into the external world. You get to choose.
I couldn't have said it any better. And with that, Isabel, I am going to open this up for a conversation. I know Robin has some thoughts and maybe a question or two to ask. Go ahead, Robin.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I am like on cloud 9 hearing you. All of Cass's guests are amazing, and I'm putting you double amazing. You touched on everything that is near and dear to my heart. Spirituality and well-being, helping women do better toward themselves, helping organizations. So you hit on all of the topics. My capstone in my master's program just a few years ago was looking at the overlap between religion / spirituality and well-being, and
Yeah.
obviously a massive overlap. And some people said I was very brave to talk about spirituality in an Ivy League school.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me that I was being brave, but at any rate. And the other thing I'll say quickly is that now in the corporate world, they are starting, just like you touched on, they're starting to recognize that these soft skills, as they call them, are really the power skills, and the spirituality and how do you and dealing with the human side of enterprise is so powerful. Two questions. One is where you focus, where you're observing your female relatives, that they were giving, but not taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
And helping women realize we need to take care of ourselves, as well as it's a yes, we're doing for others and we do for ourselves. So my first question would be, how do you help women, aside from the intellectual notion you can't give from an empty cup, that's all fine and good and absolutely true. How do you help women realize that they deserve this,
Okay.
and that it's okay, and not feel guilty about it? The second question is, in the corporate world, how do you help the corporate powers that be realize that by attending to the human side of business, they are attending to the financial side of business? You can't have one without the other.
And that's correct. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, Robin, and thank you for your questions. And yeah, everything you said is really, really powerful. And just like what you said when you're doing your capstone, right? It's about religion and spirituality. Trust me. With me, when I first started doing what I'm doing, especially having been an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, right? So I deal with people, CEOs, I deal with the corporate world. What I do sounds like woo-woo. What I do sounds like people like, no, you're not talking about numbers. You're not talking about sales. You're not talking about performance. I don't know if this is a space for you in the corporate world, but I'll first answer the question that you said about women. That is correct, right? We cannot give what we don't have. So the first route that I do, as far as women are concerned, is, I mentioned it earlier, is for them to really get to know who they are. See, we live in a society that I say has placed expectations on women. And these expectations, they're not attainable, because society will measure the strength of a man by how much weight he can carry. But then society measures the strength of a woman by how much pain she can endure. So the more pain that you go through is the more society is like, you're a strong woman, you're a strong woman. So I say this to say, what I do is I teach women to really slow down and get to know who they are. See, those women that I talked about, right? That innate instinct of survival, of courage, of will, quite frankly, that's a woman's God-given power. But most of us don't tap into it, because from the moment we are born, we are being told to become somebody else. So what I do is help women come back to themselves and really excavate. Most of it, I'll be honest with you, is trauma. So we have to deal with that. We have to deal with the unpacking. We have to deal with, from the day a young girl is born, for some of us, in culture-wise, you're told not to be seen or heard. Yeah, but we don't realize that if you grew up like that, you're going to be that way when you're 15, when you're in your 20s, in your 40s, even in your 50s. And that shows up in your marriage. It shows up in your relationships. It shows up at work. So I really try to help them understand and really tap into who they are. And that happens by excavating, doing deep diving, for them to really discover and know who that little girl inside of them is. Trust me, women who are making millions of dollars have never tapped into that. So that's where we start from. It's all educational. And then the next thing that I send them to is creating healthy boundaries, right? And how do you create healthy boundaries? The only way you can, and let me first say this. When I talk about boundaries, I am a mother of 3. I will do anything for my children. I've always been about my family, even before I started on my own journey. But I want to tell you something, Robin. When I started really working on myself, I thought I loved my family. I now know. There's a difference between believing and knowing. And you know why I know? My intention is different. When you have too much commotion, you can't operate from that state of not knowing who you are. So that's what I deal with women. And really quick, because I know we're about to wrap up, as far as the corporate world is concerned, you mentioned it very eloquently. We lived in a world where everybody woke up and it's about numbers. You're hiring people about numbers. You're hiring people because they have the best degree. You're hiring people because they went to the best school. Here's a news flash about humanity and being. Every human being has been created with a gift. Every human being is born with a gift. And most corporate people don't understand. If you don't nurture your employees, if you don't support your employees to get to know who they are, there is no education in this world that will bring the best out of them. What you need to do is help them tap into their gift. When you tap into their gift, the person becomes who they are, and all those skills that they want everybody else to have, they will automatically come in, and it helps the bottom line. That's the reason why there's quiet quitting. People don't want to work anymore because human beings are now saying, I don't care about you seeing how I can perform. See me first. When you see me, performance comes naturally. So it's really about the person and not what the person has. It's about the being itself to be able to tap into that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What a powerful question and amazingly answer. Thank you so much, Robin, for that question. And Isabel, it has been a wonderful hour. I can't even imagine how quickly the hour flew. You and I.
It goes by so fast.
I know. You and I can talk for hours. So we have plans to do other things.
Yeah.
We invite you to stay engaged. This is a conversation, and this is a line of empowerment that we continue to bring to the world. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Remember, who you are matters.
Mm-hmm.
Because the being that you are is the gift from your God, the universe, and your being embodies energy. Yes. You are a bundle of energy. Yes. So channel that energy and get to know you. Because remember, the most important relationship you're going to have in this life is with yourself, with your inner self. So build that. If you don't know you, you don't know what you want to do, who you want to do it with, where you want to be, and who you want to be with. So start with you, invest in you, and remember, you are a heart, mind, body, and a spirit, all of it wrapped together, because you are a whole person. You are not a fraction of a person. So take the whole person that you are and move forward. And in that process, allow your being to channel all you're doing, and you will find that you're not only continuing to expand the container, the spirit in which your entire self resides. As you expand that self, you're going to thrive, and you're going to make a difference in this world, and you truly are going to leave a legacy.